Hi, this is Ellen Broderick with the Inspired Living podcast. And I am here today with Ann Altor. And Ann is the founder and CEO of One Earth Body Care. So this is a product which nourishes, or a series of products that nourish the body and the senses with all natural care products. They're responsibly sourced ingredients and packaging. The One Earth Body Care is committed to products that are good for people and respectful of the earth. Anne is a catalyst for positive change and stewardship of herself, of the community, and of the planet. She was a graduate of the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry and holds a doctorate in environmental science from Ohio State. Anne is a rock climber, a mushroom enthusiast, a hiker, and a piano player. Welcome, Anne. It's really nice to have you on the Inspired Living podcast.
Thank you, Ellen. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. And I certainly aspire to be a catalyst, at least for positive change in my own life, but I can't claim to be, but aspiring.
Aspiring, yes. I thought maybe we could start today with if you could tell us a little bit about your childhood and who were your influencers, and perhaps what in your upbringing laid a foundation for your interest in the earth and in caring for the earth as we care for ourselves.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that question. So I've wondered, I clearly have some strong influences in my childhood. My mother was an environmentalist. I think before that was really a word. And the first Earth Day was in 1979. And she was naturally drawn to that. She's a plant lover, a gardener. So I grew up outside a lot, like a lot of people I think of maybe our generation, spent a lot of time outside. I grew up in a fairly rural area. And so I walked to school and my mom would take me on wildflower walks and we'd take pictures of the wildflowers. I raised caterpillars and the butterflies and things that I think back on and feel so lucky to have had that opportunity. And so I think that naturally just simulated a connection, an opportunity for me to feel connected with the earth, to be connected with the earth. I think it's a birthright really for humans, but not everyone has that opportunity to have a connection, but I did. And so that stuck with me. And I just naturally felt, well, I loved the planet. I loved the bugs. I loved the creatures. I loved pets, but nature and trees too. And always felt a kinship and felt that, how do we know as humans what other species feel or think? I noticed at an early age that there was an attitude of human superiority, and that just never felt right to me. It never rang true, and I always felt like there was something wrong with that, and that all of the other beings mattered too. And so I think a combination of growing up with some exposure and the opportunity to tap into that natural connection to the planet was there.
And that continued. I mean, obviously your education is really the foundation for that, is being outdoors and being in nature. And I'm sure there was a lot of book work, but there's also the focus is really on nature. And
Right.
so now there was a story that I read somewhere. I think it was on your website that was about a project that your mother set you up to do when you were a child of making soap.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. When my brother and I were small, probably 10 or 12, I was probably 10 or 12. Dave would have been a couple years older, but one of our projects, Mom liked to do some sciencey projects with us. And one day it was soap making. So she had this, I remember this as being like a witch's cauldron. I don't know what it was, but it was a huge kettle and we had it out on the back porch. And we made soap. We used lard from the butcher down the road and lye and some food coloring. And we made these soap balls that were like pink and green. And I just remember the steaming kettle that smelled horrible. And we made these fun little balls of soap, and then we used them, and that stayed with me as just a childhood memory.
Yeah.
And one day, a friend of mine in Indiana, this was 10 or 15 years ago, was buying a lot of natural soap, and I was picking it up for her because of where I lived. And she'd always give me a couple bars to use myself. And I thought, oh, and I always remembered that soap making experience as a child, and I thought it would be fun to do again sometime. And one day I just decided to make some soap, and I had an academic job, and I discovered soap making as a hobby and kind of an artistic pursuit. And soon the shelves in the cupboards were overflowing. Like every soap maker has that story. Like, oh, they realize how fun and artistic it is. They give away as much as possible, and then their kitchen cupboards are overflowing. And so, and I'm probably getting ahead of your questions, but One Earth Body Care, it originated sort of with that. And before One Earth Body Care was called Ann's Homemade Stuff, we realized we needed to get rid of the soap, and it was a fun project. And so it's come a long way from then. We don't even make soap anymore, but that's how the company was more or less started.
Well, I remember you said that the cauldron, as you were making soap, the smells were not too pleasant.
Right.
But Anne is a neighbor of mine, across the street neighbor, and walking into your house and the products that were in the foyer had such a welcoming aroma. What do you use to? Well, I'm sure that you use some of your chemistry knowledge to put these together, but these products together. But what kinds of materials do you use to make? I know you make shampoos, you make human shampoos and dog shampoo, you make conditioner, you make other products that have to do with oils and salves. What's the extent of your line?
Currently, so we've narrowed our scope quite a bit, and our primary products are shampoo bars for your hair and conditioner bars for people, and we make them for pets too, like you mentioned, and we make herbal balms. So the shampoo bars are soap free. We don't use the traditional soap making process to make those. Originally, I wanted to keep them as organic as possible and made them as soap, which a lot of soap makers do, but I found that they really didn't work so well. They'd work for a little while, and then my hair would get a buildup, and our customers were saying the same thing, like, I liked these originally, but they don't seem to be working anymore. So I did a deep dive into the hair science and chemistry to understand what's going on, why are these not working, and learned that the pH is really important for hair. So just to keep it simple for now and brief, the hair, our human hair and scalp has a low pH. And so the basic chemistry of that is that when the pH is low, the hair cuticle, which has scales, stays flat. It means the hair is going to be shiny. The product will rinse out. It won't build up on the hair, won't accumulate any gunk that it could if the pH is high. When the pH is high, the cuticle opens up. So anyway, we completely reformulated. We took close to a year to develop formulas that would have a low pH, that would rinse out well, that would leave the hair shiny. So we have 3 shampoo bars, one for dry hair, one for medium hair, one for oily hair. And then we have 2 conditioner bars also for the hair. So that's our current hair line. And we use essential oils for the aroma, which you touched on. So we have a variety of different aromas, all scented with essential oils. And then we make some herbal balms also. So we infuse the organic herbs into organic oils, and then add essential oils depending on the application of the balm. So a few skin products and the hair products.
And I know from having used these that they are a pleasure to use. You know, sometimes if you have an aroma that goes along with a regular activity like washing your hair, there's some way that you are not only treating the hair, but you're treating your nose, you're treating your full physiology
Mhm.
with this um, the sense and the feel. So why a bar for the soaps,
Mhm.
for the
Sure.
shampoos?
Right. And just to touch back on your comment about the essential oils, I really believe in delighting the senses. The nature delights our senses, I feel like, every day. And essential oils are the essence. They're part of the essence, not the whole essence, but they're an important part of the essence of the plant that's on some levels magical. It's very chemical. They're volatile oils, but it's also an element that can transport our senses and enchant us. And we like to, most of our customers, some do prefer unscented products, but most really, and they might have allergies or other needs, but many people anyway, they want to choose based on smell because it's the smell that it might not even be rational or might not have explanations for it, but it captivates us.
Yeah.
So essential oils are important in our products, and we attempt to source, of course, good quality oils, sustainably harvested and organic when possible, and avoiding oils that require deforestation.
Mhm.
But why a bar? So many reasons. The first reason that motivated us to work on the shampoo bars, we wanted to just to help people reduce plastic. So we believe packaging is very important. We want to create products that are great for people, that inspire us, that really work well, but also that respect the earth. And so one of our sayings that we like to emphasize is nourish your body, love the earth. And we believe part of loving the earth is being conscious about what we use and how. And so for us, that means let's not add to the plastic burden. Let's not give people products in plastic bottles. Let's help them have products that work really well and that don't create a landfill issue at the end of the product life.
Mhm.
So that's one reason why we make the products in bars. And so for example, shampoo generally is 70 to 80% water. And of course, it comes in a plastic bottle. It costs a lot to transport with fuel. Plastic and water are heavy. So transporting that on trucks, storing it on the shelves requires a lot of fossil fuel as well as creating the plastic waste. So the bars eliminate that problem. You just add your own water in the shower, which you're going to do anyway. And then at the end, you can compost the box it came in and you're done.
Yeah.
Also, bars are convenient. They take up very little space. They're concentrated, so they are long lasting. So for people who travel, you can just put the bar right in your kit and no plastic, no liquid. And so there's no issue with traveling on airplanes. That's another benefit of the bars.
Mm. That's wonderful that it hits so many aspects of caring for the earth, doesn't it? While caring for yourself. Um,
Mm.
Now you and your husband Ed LaPlante both are rock climbers,
Mhm.
and if I recall, there was a time when you mentioned that that you started to create a balm for your hands for the rock climbing, because the rock climbing can be pretty tough on the hands.
Right.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. That was, I believe, our first balm. That was years ago.
Mhm.
So we are climbers. We're not climbing as much these days. We moved to the White Mountains and we're captivated with the hiking. So, but climbing has always been important to us and still is. And so the first balm that we made was called Climber's Balm. And we've evolved that a little bit and it's now called Skin Fix. It's slightly different than our original formula. But the idea with with rock climbing, you really tear up your hands. Your hands are on the rock all the time. So that's drying and the rock is sharp and you end up with a lot of cuts, scrapes, and tears. And we found that an herbal balm was a way to heal the skin quickly. And we developed a formula that was not greasy, so it would soak in so you could actually keep climbing, apply it, and within about a half an hour, 15 to 30 minutes, be climbing again.
Mm.
So that climber's balm is a beeswax based balm. And now our comparable product now is called Skin Fix. So we use calendula in that product, which is a wonderful healing herb that you see probably often in many products that are good for the skin. It helps the skin to repair itself. And then some organic beeswax, organic olive oil, and other oils to create a really nourishing balm that soaks into the skin and helps it heal and feels good. So it's good
Mhm.
for dry skin. A lot of people with eczema like this product also.
And would that be good on the feet as well?
Oh, yeah, it's great on the feet. I like to recommend that people put it on at night if they have dry skin, dry feet, especially in the winter.
Mhm. You have another nighttime product that that I put on my feet and my hands, and it has lavender in it, and it's a salve. I think you call it. Is it a sleep balm
That's our
salve?
sleep balm, right? It's got lavender, cedarwood, vetiver, and a little touch of patchouli.
Yeah.
And that one has been amazing. We actually made it, we're doing the inspired living class, of course, with you, Ellen, which we love. And one of our inspirations from that class was to create a sleep balm. I've had a lot of sleep issues in my life, and a lot of people do. So this balm, the idea was to create something that smells amazing and feels good and just can help with relaxing and falling asleep. And it's interesting that that's become one of our top selling products at the shows that we go to. And to me, that just says so many people have sleep issues. And, there's of course a lot more that goes into getting a good night's sleep, as we've been talking about in your class, with how we eat, when we eat, how we think, how we breathe.
Mhm.
And so that's all important. And sleep balm is just a way to help really nourish the senses for relaxing.
Yeah. Well, and one of the ways for sleeping well is paying attention to the routine leading up to sleep, right?
Mhm.
And that
Right.
is where that balm can really be the balm.
Right. Nice. I like that. Might have to
Um,
borrow that.
you're also a mushroom enthusiast. If I can switch a little bit, can you tell me a little bit, or tell our audience a little bit about what got you interested in the wild mushroom, and you've now decided to cultivate some mushrooms. So can you just give a little background and a little overview of, this is an area where I see you really light up.
Thanks. Yeah, I do. I love mushrooms. And thinking about how that started, it might be hard to pinpoint. It's been a while, but I find them fascinating. They're beautiful beings, mushrooms. I mean, they come in all kinds of colors and some maybe not so beautiful conventionally, but they're so interesting. They come in many shapes, sizes, textures. And I'm a big fan of foraging nutrition when I can from the wild. And I find mushrooms to be so delicious and so fun. They spring up overnight. They're very important in the ecosystem. Without fungi, we would not have decomposition of many things. I mean, they're not the only decomposers, but they're very important. And is getting better known now. Of course, the mushrooms themselves are the fruiting bodies of an underground network. And scientists are discovering how critical that network is, how extensive it is, how it links so many species underground. Many trees rely on fungi to be their partners, to bring them nutrition, to bring them water. The trees impart nutrition as well to the fungi. So there's this underground network that is extensive, critical to the survival of ecosystems. And then the fruiting bodies, the mushrooms, come up when it's time for them to reproduce and generate more spores and spread. And And I find them delicious, fascinating, and fun to identify. And of course, many are not edible, but they're equally fun to try to identify. So, being in New Hampshire, we've been finding a lot of oyster mushrooms, and we've been finding bear's head, chaga, and I decided this year would be just be a good year to try to grow some mushrooms. So we inoculated logs with shiitakes and lion's head and or lion's mane and bear's head, and we don't expect fruiting for probably a year, but we've got the project going. So we have our little mushroom farm now, and
So
be fun to see what happens.
you'll be noticing all the stages along the way, and as a neighbor, I'm really excited to be an observer of all of this as well.
And a taster.
And a taster, yes, the recipient of many of the wild mushroom gatherings as well, which I'm
Right.
very grateful for. um, so you're talking about hiking, and I know you love the White Mountains, and I know you love getting out and climbing. What is it about being outside, about the high mountains, uh, and about the experience of hiking and being in nature that really lights you up?
Hmm. I think it's a lot of things. So I've just always found so much peace in nature, whether I'm going through a personal challenge or struggle. I've always turned to nature to as a healing force, as a source of inspiration. I've always found that if I just whatever is going on, um, maybe it's positive, maybe it's a challenge, but I go out in nature and spend enough time out there, and I'm always refreshed and rejuvenated. I think there's a lot. I mean, you could talk about the scientific things going on. We're inhaling the essential oils and the essences of the plants. We're hearing, and all of our senses are taking in the beauty. I think there's a spiritual component to it too, at least for me, to feel a connection with the other beings out there and to pay attention. And something Robin Kimmerer said, I was listening to a podcast interview with her recently, and it was the On Being podcast, who just rebroadcasted an interview with Robin Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. And she was asked if there's anything she wanted to share about what she picks up in nature. And the comment that stuck with me, she said, well, I feel that the other, the trees and the other beings are feeling lonely for people to notice them, lonely to be acknowledged. And that really struck me. I feel like there's so much that nature, and we're part of nature. I don't mean to say it's humans and nature, but there's so much that being in nature, the other beings can share with us just by being present. So I often like to stop at some point on the hike and just tune in and listen. And this is something, Ellen, when I'm with you, I notice you do this, and you've reminded me to do this too. Just stop and listen. What are you hearing? What are you hearing in the trees and the breezes? It's really fun to hear at the high levels. There's a certain sound that the breeze makes in the trees, and sounds different in needles versus leaves, and then lower down. And anyway, I think just soaking it in and smelling and hearing and is inspiring, and just I feel, not that I tend to feel alone anyway, but I really don't feel alone when I'm out in the woods. I feel connected to the rest of nature. So that's a part of it, just listening to the birds and looking at the plants and the mushrooms and getting lost in the sensory experience. And then there's a physiological component. I've always loved to exercise a lot and to get my heart rate up. And so I like to climb, I like to get to the tops of the peaks to see the views and to just feel that kind of exhilaration of sweating and, working hard and just getting the, the heart rate, metabolism going, just feels good too. But being in nature is, it's what makes me feel most alive. And I think it's because I'm surrounded by so much life, whether it's in the middle of winter or whether it's in summer. There's so much out there, and connecting to it is a beautiful experience.
I wonder how the mushroom feels, right? Coming up from underground and experiencing the world, but still feeling that connection to the whole, to the web.
I love that, what you just said, because that's a fun exercise. And I haven't really tried that with mushrooms. Sometimes I like to imagine, what does it feel like to be that bird, perched on that branch, landing on the branch, taking off and flying.
Yeah.
And that would be a fun exercise too. And to think about, what does it feel like to be that tree swaying in the wind, feeling the bird on the branch? What does it feel like to be a mushroom? What is that experience like? I think that's a fun way to almost alter our consciousness, in a completely non-substance related way, by trying to imagine, how can we really know, but trying to embody that feeling of what it would feel like, what it might feel like to be another species.
Yeah. And also, what is it about that species that connects me to the species I am? So there's the
Mm.
underground and unseen web that the mushroom is connected to. And there also, in my belief anyway, there is a connection to all living beings that is unseen, but that is part of our physiology as well.
Mhm. I agree. That makes me think about how, before I eat my meals, I like to just hold the food and feel gratitude and imagine where that all of the, the different ingredients, whether from the sun to the water to the rain to the wind, to how it's connected to everything, and how that food is then becoming me. And when we think about, what are we, of course we're physical matter, but we're formed by what we eat and breathe and drink. That's all. That's entirely, our bodies are coming from the nourishment we take in. And so we are one. We're one with everything that we intake. And, and feeling that gratitude, but also feeling that connection that way, that we're made of the same materials that everything else is made of. And we are those trees and plants. And it's fun to think about.
Taking that time to recognize and be grateful for that is a really powerful practice.
Mhm.
And I notice when I forget to do it.
Mhm.
And I mean, not necessarily in the moment, but I do find that it is a way to stay in the world. I think it was Einstein who said there are two ways to experience the world. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle.
Mm.
It reminds me of the miracle that we might otherwise just be taking for granted, or the many
Right.
miracles that we might otherwise be taking for granted.
Yeah, it's a great reminder.
Anything about your experience in both your work and in your life that you would like to share? We just have another minute or two, and I just don't want to miss something that I know you fairly well from the last year. It's hard to believe it's just been a year, but I know that there are aspects of you that that I may not be aware of that would be worth sharing here as well.
Thanks for that. I guess one thing that comes to mind is, just to let whoever's listening to the podcast know, I write a blog post. So one of the ways that I like to share is through writing. And I have a blog on oneearthbodycare.com where I talk about everyday ecology, I call it. And I don't write as often as I'd like. I try to do one a month. But I like to put out ideas, to share ideas about ways to live in, in connection and harmony with the planet, ways to things that we can do with our lifestyles to have a more connected or a more ecological lifestyle. Maybe that's one thing that I would share is the blog on oneearthbodycare.com. A couple books I would recommend would be Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Kimmerer. That's just such a beautiful, impactful book. That would be one that I would recommend to people if you like to read or listen to books.
And that one is, to me, a particularly good one for if you're thinking, how can I navigate through this world in a way that is respectful of the earth. It is sort of a map or a blueprint for how to do that.
Yeah, or at least definitely, and how to, yeah, I would say it's not so much a how to as a here are some ideas, and I'm still challenged by the book. There are so many wonderful challenges in the book and opportunities. And one of the sort of the pieces that really stays with me is she talks about the purpose of an education, according to Robin Kimmerer's tradition, is to know your gifts, to learn what your gifts are and how to give them back to the world, so that we're living and enjoying the gifts that the world gives and also giving ours back. And I think that's one of the great messages in that book, and something I think about a lot. Am I doing that? How do I live up to that?
And you said it coming from her tradition, which is she's of the Potawatomi nation, and she also has a background in but botany. I believe
Right.
she's a botanist.
Botanist and a bryologist, a moss ecologist. Yeah.
Yeah, and a wonderful speaker and writer.
Very inspiring.
Yeah. And this has been totally a pleasure. And I want to just thank you so much for coming on to the Inspired Living with Ellen Broderick podcast. And look forward to seeing you, often.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I've enjoyed this, and I so appreciate you and what you're doing and how you live your gifts every day. So thank you.
Thank you.